So first now let's learn what are the fundamental principles which are published by the ACCA code and which have been amended to reflect to the IESBA's code. Now this fundamental principle comes from the ACCA's 2022 code, which is basically an amended based on the revision of IESBA's code, which was again implemented in 2022. So this is a very recent code that have been created by ACCA to guide the professionalism and ethics of the ACCA students, members as well as affiliates. And this code applies to students, members as well as affiliates, and anyone who's not doing in this, who's having not following these fundamental principles will be penalized with rejection of your or ratification of your registrations, jail term, punishment of fines and penalties as well, etc. So the fundamental principles are divided into five categories, namely integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. So what does integrity mean? Integrity means honesty, like be honest every single time. You have to tell the truth. You have to be truthful to in your relationships. You need to be truthful to the client. You need to be truthful to your profession itself. Is called as integrity. You need to do fair dealing and have a strength of the character to act appropriately even when you are facing a lot of pressure. Like for example, your boss is coming to you and telling you to do something which is, let's say for example, stealing. He's saying that let's defraud the company. You steal some money from the company. Now that's being not having integrity. If you steal, you're not fair to the company and you're not truth. So that's wrong. So you need to have the courage, you need to have the strength of the character to go against the boss and tell him that no, I'm a person who's maintaining high integrity and I'm an integral person. I will not steal from the company. So that's called as integrity, having honesty. What is called as objectivity? Objective means not being biased, which is unbiased. I'll put it as unbiased. So objectivity means to be unbiased. On all terms, you have to be unbiased. Now, when do you become biased? When you are under influence. Let us say, for example, take a case of your parents itself. Before you start doing ACCA, your parents might would have said, oh, you know what, why you need to do ACCA? Go and do MBA or go and do BCom. Just because your parents is saying and you have a relationship with your parents and of course they are paying money for your education, you might get influenced on their decision. So they are taking decision on your behalf. You're not taking your own decisions. They are taking your decisions. That is called as being biased. And you don't have objectivity. Why? Because you are not the one who's taking the decisions. It's not your judgment. Your judgment is compromised by an influence from your parents. Likewise, as an accountant, you will have certain undue influences. There could be cases of influences over you because of the relationship that you carry with the client. Or you might have a conflict of interest where you have to, for the interest of others, you might have to do something which will help benefit the other person, which we'll discuss it later, but any which ways. So objectivity means to be unbiased. If you're taking a biased decision, you're not objective. Your decisions are not objective decisions. Like your parents taking decisions on your behalf, they're not objective decisions. If your friend says, oh, what food you need to eat, then that's not objective decisions. It's a simple day-to-day life that we follow. Similarly, in accountants as well, the client could have undue influence over you, due to which you won't be able to take decisions by yourself, whereas the client will take decisions for you, or he will put you in a pressure situation where you have to take a decision that favors the client. Then you are lacking objectivity. The third one is called as professional competence and due care, which means to have the skill sets, the skills. You need to have professional competence means this relevant skills. Firstly, just because you're learning ACCA, you are not having enough skill to go and audit single-handedly a firm, a company. You need to have enough skill sets. You need to gain enough knowledge. You need to gain professional, competence like technical examination. You need to pass. You need to have X amount of experience to go and audit a company. Similarly, let's say for example, I have been auditing an industry which is called as manufacturing industry. Suddenly I am given a work of a banking industry. Do I have the competence to go and audit the banking industry? Not necessarily, because my entire life I would have been auditing, I would have been auditing the manufacturing industry. So my core strength is definitely not banking industry. So because of that, I would lack professional competence. I might not have enough competence with me. I don't have enough skills to go and audit the banking firm. So hence, if I am taking up a work, I need to first understand, do I have the enough skills? If I don't have enough skills, I need to not take up the work, or I need to take up someone who have the enough skills, or I need to appoint someone who have enough skills to do that specific work. Due care means being careful. Every single time you're going to do some work for the client, you have to be very careful and ensure that you are not doing something wrong. So you have to be very careful because you're doing the work on behalf of some third party. So you have to take the steps very carefully. The fourth one is called as confidentiality. Confidentiality means what? To keep secret. Confidentiality means to keep a secret. Let us say, for example, I am auditing a big manufacturing firm, let's say FMCG firm, let's say Coca-Cola. And as I'm an auditor, I know the accounting information or finance information of Coca-Cola company. And they have informed us they're going to start a new factory. And they're saying us, oh, you know what? Do not tell this to anyone. It's a secret. Now, what do I do? If I know this information and I go and tell to someone, am I being confidential? No, I am not confidential. I'm leaking the secret information or confidential information of a client, which I'm not supposed to do. So as an auditor, you are supposed to maintain, or as an accountant, you are supposed to maintain confidentiality to a large extent. Always you need to maintain confidentiality. And an accountant must be alert and should not disclose any kind of secret information or confidential information about the client in a social environment to close business associates or even family members. You have to be very careful. You should not disclose any information to the third parties. In fact, sometimes when you are working, when you are in your audit profession, you might be auditing competitors together. Like for example, I might be auditing Coca-Cola company, and my colleague might be auditing PepsiCo. So my colleague and myself, we meet daily on the cafeteria or on the work floor, etc. Now, when I am in auditing Coca-Cola, I cannot say any information relating to this company to my colleague. If I say it, then I'm breaching the confidentiality agreement. So not just the third parties outside the firm, but within the firm also, we need to maintain confidentiality. If you tell the secret, there could be repercussions because their business could get compromised. But there are certain provisions as per the confidentiality agreement that as per the ethics and code of the ACCA as well as IESBA says that there are times where the auditor are allowed to breach this confidentiality agreement. Specifically, for example, you are facing a court case. Let's say, for example, Coca-Cola is in a huge litigation, and in the court of law, they invited the auditor, like me, they invited me, and they asked me to give facts and information about the case. Now, if I tell, you know what, I have a confidentiality agreement with the Coca-Cola, I will be, facing jail time. So, there is a saying that judiciary is above all. Like judiciary has power over legislature. Judiciary have power over any kind of civil matters. So even though I will have a confidentiality agreement, I can disclose information if it is mattered or required under the court of law as a matter of requirement. Second aspect is that if the company is doing something illegal activity like money laundering, fraudulent, or some drug dealing, etc., then it's a criminal offense. I can disclose it to the appropriate authorities or even to the money laundering officers, etc. And the third is in terms of public interest. So we learned what is public interest for the welfare or well-being of the public. And if we see that the company is doing something not correct, and we feel that the stakeholders could get affected because this company is carrying out in such a manner, we have the right to come out to the public and state the facts that this is something wrongdoing the company is doing. Then also we are allowed to breach the confidentiality agreement. Sometimes the auditors breach I would say not breach, but come out to the public in a different manner, strategically. For example, how Deloitte, did it with respect to Byju's. They just resigned. That actually put things under a lot of scandal. A lot of investors actually exited from Byju's. The loan companies are calling back their loans, and a lot of scanner have been implemented on Byju's because of this one resignation that Deloitte did. And Deloitte did just to protect them. So that is allowed because we as professional accountants, we have to maintain the public interest. If we feel that the Byju's are not doing something wrong, I mean, it could not be something wrong, but it's like they are not filing their accounts properly. There has been a delay of the latest terms as well, and last terms of the audit also they did not do it well. They have not completed it. They have not made any rectification. So hence Deloitte felt that it's a too risky game for them, so they resigned. Last and never the least is called as the professional behavior. How do you behave professionally? Like, how are you called as a good citizen of India? Or why you are being called as a good citizen of India if you follow the rules and regulations? So, as an ACCA professional, we are required to follow all the relevant laws and regulation and should be complied and ensure that we do not bring any discredit to the profession. Like if you are an ACCA member and you do something fraud, the ACCA's name is getting spoiled in front of the public. So hence, it's very important that you behave professionally, and when you're called as a professional is when you are following all the rules and regulations and all the codes and conduct you have to do, carrying it very well as per the ACCA's codes as well as IESBA, ISBA's codes, and carrying it every single time when you're working for any company or auditing any company, or even when you are a student, you need to behave professionally and you are expected to behave professionally. So now let's understand the conceptual framework of the IESBA. Now the conceptual framework, the IESBA codes provides a conceptual framework that the professional accountants need to evaluate and address the threat to the compliance. So as per the conceptual framework, what it requires is that the professional accountant should check all or evaluate all the threats that he is going to face, and also address them how he can be complied with ethical and with the ethics. So in a nutshell, he need to consider all the risk he is facing in relation to the threat and match it with an appropriate action. Now, what are these threats? What kinds of threats he might face? Why he might be facing these threats? We will learn very shortly, because that's a bigger chunk of the syllabus that we need to cover. But as I told you, the threats is certain kind of situations that accountant will be put with, where continuing with the situation will lead him to become unethical. So how the accountant tackles these threats is what the conceptual framework talks about. So as per the conceptual framework, it's very clearly says that you are required to identify the threats, evaluate the severity or the seriousness of these threats, and then address them. what you will do is of 3 layers of categories, which is use the reasonable and informed third party test, like how this threat is gonna affect and inform and affect the third party. Exercise professional judgment, like you need to exercise your tech knowledge and skills that you have acquired while you're pursuing your qualification to tackle this threat, and have an inquiring mind. So 3 things that you need to apply which will help you to identify the threat, evaluate them and address them. One is how these threats will affect the informed party. Second, applying your knowledge that you have gained over the due course. And third, always having an inquiring mind. So the term that we might not understand is inquiring mind. What is an inquiring mind? Inquiring mind means remaining alert. Also says that to have an inquiring mind, IESBA has mentioned it as per their 2021 code, is to remain alert and to always question. So the word inquiring mind is similar or is almost the same as maintaining professional skepticism. When we call it as professional skepticism, we will have to remain alert, we will have to ask questions. Inquiring means keep asking questions, keep digging up the facts. If you do that, definitely you will get to know more and more information about the threat that you might be facing. Further, to help you to identify the threats, it is important that the IESBA, as per their revisions, have added certain considerations while you are applying this framework, which is called as the biasness. Now, as per the fundamental principles of IESBA, one of the fundamental principle is objectivity, which says that unbiased. What are the situations that could lead to you being biased is what they have given as a consideration in the framework. So the biasness are divided into 8 aspects, which is anchoring, automation, availability, confirmation, groupthink, overconfidence, representation, and selective. Anchoring means using an initial piece of information as an anchor against which subsequent information is inadequately assessed. So you get one piece of information and you don't follow the inquiring mind. You got the information and that's it. You take a judgment based on that information. You don't follow up on additional information and you say that this is enough. We have got one information, we have got one evidence, let's say this is enough. We don't need to have a follow-up evidence or additional evidence. That is called as anchoring bias. So you use whatever the information that you got as an anchor to hold your ship or to hold your guns. That is called as anchoring bias. Whatever the information that you have at present, you will use that. That's it. Second one is automation bias. You are going to favor the automated output. Even when your human reasoning or contradictory information raises question, you say that it's automation, it's automated, there's no human touch, which means it should be good. Automated bias is something that's coming up very recently, and it's part of the current issues where people are believing more in machines and artificial intelligence rather than human reasoning and judgment. So even with our knowledge or our informations and technical guidance that we have gained over the due course, if it is something that's coming from an automated source, we try to believe it more rather than based on our human facts or judgment. So even when our human judgment raises a question or doubtful, we might not follow our instincts. Rather, we say that, okay, you know what, this is automated source, so we don't need to follow up. It's an automation bias. Availability bias is placing more weight on events or experiences that immediately come to your mind and are readily available than those that are not. So availability information is whatever available, you take it. So let's say you are very hungry and you are given a plate of food which you don't like, you eat it immediately. That's availability bias. You eat or you consume whatever the information that is available to you and you are lazy enough to dig up further facts. It's availability bias. So you place more weightage on situations or evidences that is coming to your mind immediately rather than those are not that are available immediately. The fourth one is confirmation bias, which is placing more information that on information that corroborates an existing belief than information that contradicts or casts doubt on that belief. So you will be like, confirmation bias is almost equal to saying something positive. Whatever information you get, you might not think negative. Oh, this should be good. This should be correct. What the person is saying should be true. You might not contradict or give a doubt on the belief, but you confirm it immediately, stating that this belief or whatever the information is true. That is called as confirmation bias. Like, you place more weightage on the positive aspects, but might not cast doubt on the information that is given to you. Group thinking is when a group of individuals reach a consensus without critical reasoning or consideration of alternatives. Let us say in a room of 10, 9 people are accepting to a fact and the one single person is opposing to a fact. Even though the one single person is right, ultimately the one single person who is opposing to the fact might think twice before he takes up his judgment, because 9 of them are opposing to the fact. So groupthink is you are not confident about yourself, but the group surrounding you, even though you are right in your angle, you might think what the others think. And you'll ask confirmation from various group of individuals, and moment group of individuals confirm the fact, you will go with that particular fact of information. That is called as groupthink. What others think, you give more weightage to what you think. Even though you might be minority, you might not look at critical reasoning why you are answering, why you are supporting this particular fact. You might go with the group because they are majority and they might be right. Just because they are major doesn't mean that they are always right. The next one is overconfidence. It's pretty simple. Like, I know what I'm doing and I'll do it in my own way, and I know it will be correct. That's overconfidence. Not necessarily every single time you will be accurate and appropriate. The seventh one is a representation. Representation bias is basis an understanding of pattern of experience, events or belief that are assumed to be representative. So if something bad has happened, you might take that as a representative for everything that's going to happen in future. Oh, something bad has happened. Let's take this representation as something that's said in astrology. If a cat crosses while you are going somewhere, if a black cat crosses, you might think that, oh, you know what, something bad is going to happen. And in fact, by coincidence, if something bad really did happen, you will represent it because it's the cat crossing. That's the reason why something bad has happened. That's called as representative. You take a pattern of experience and that representation, that will be considered as a representation for anything that's going to happen in future. The last but never the least is the selective bias or a selective perception, where when a person's expectation influences or how they view a particular matter or a person. So you are choosy, you are selective, you are judgmental. The moment you see an information or a fact, you have a particular view, and that is selective. That might cause you to take a wrong decision. The moment you get a fact, you are judgmental. Without investigating the fact, you might say, oh, this is wrong, or in fact this is right. That is selective. If you choose a stand just because the way you think and taking for a particular matter, that is called as selective biasness. Auditor or an accountant need to take actions that help you to mitigate this biasness, while you're carrying your professional services. And the way that you can reduce all these bias that ACCA has, the IESBA has mentioned, is to have an expert advice, talking to an expert. Definitely his input or his additional input will help you to take critical actions. Consulting with others, like if you don't know, you talk to your senior. If you're having a vague judgment, talk to your superior. Training and professional development. You need to improve your professional judgment and your knowledge and your technical aspects. The only way to do that is to attend a lot of training and to develop yourself as part of your professional competencies.